Come on in, everybody we see out there. Come on in. It's time for the Sunday Funnies. Thanks for joining us. We are going to start out with a little bit of fun this morning with an opening that of an old comic series. Joseph, I see you in the green room. I'll be right with you. And like I said, we're going to do a little monkeying around this morning.
Sweet.
So let's see how this works. Actually have to put it on here this morning. Add it in. I'm going to drop that out. And here we go. Can we hear that?
Stands for justice, have no fear, easy to call when trouble is near. Lance Link,
Oh my God.
buddy, it's counting on you. Being out of heaven, and each and every friend that shall stick by your side right to the end. Darwin is the leader on the side of good. Fight Trump agents like a good ape should. Oh, Lance Link, what you gonna do? You gotta stop Trump, job's up to you. Man, Ron Butcher, you better beware. He's been cunning and he don't play fair. Got an evil chauffeur and Credo's his name.
Credo.
That woman's lovely, but she's wicked all the same. Oh, Lance Link, what you gonna do? Get that Dr. Strange man comes after you.
Oh my God.
Scene. When you went through. And the Susan looks can really pull you. Oh, Lance Link, secret chip. Justice, he has no fear. He's the agent to call when trouble is near. Lance Link, what you gonna do?
Oh my God.
Nothing like apes driving motorcycles.
Wow.
How great was that, huh? That was an entire show way back in the, I believe it was, had to have been late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, no, it looked the part. I mean, and
way before your time, probably, Joseph.
Well before.
Well before your time, Mike Jimmy. Yeah. I actually had, this is how old it was. I actually had the Viewmaster reels for that show. If you remember what Viewmasters were.
I remember the Viewmaster.
Little circular discs of film that you put into a viewer and you clicked, and it gave you a three-dimensional image.
They still make them once in a while.
Once in a great while, yeah. I'll always regret I was at an antique store up in the Upper Peninsula, way up north from me. I'm in Michigan, Middle Michigan. Way up north from me, they had an entire box display with a Viewmaster viewer and a ton of discs that they were selling for $20, and I passed on it, and I regret that to this day.
Yeah.
They didn't have them in their individual packs because you used to buy them in packs of 3 reels at a time, and this is long before any type of recording, VHS, or even before cassette tapes came out. But if you had a show that you loved, they ended up doing a Viewmaster set for it. It was like $1.50. It was really expensive back then to buy a set.
They were two-sided, right?
No, they were single-sided, but you slipped them into the viewer, and there was like eight different scenes on each reel.
Yeah, I remember.
Classic old stuff. Come on in, everybody. It's time for the Sunday Funnies. We're going to run our official opening now that we've subjected you to that little bit of monkey business. So we'll run the official opening and then get on with our podcast. Here we go, I think. Where is it? It's run away again. There it is. Here we go. There we go. That's right. It's time for the Sunday Funnies, where we try to put the fun back in funny books.
That's right.
So I'm your host, Randy Zimmerman. I've been doing alternative and independent comics for many, many, many decades. Started actually in the back of William Mesner Loeb's Journey, number 11, way back when.
Oh,
Now we're
wow.
bringing Russ in. Russ,
Hey.
welcome aboard, buddy.
Hi.
Nice of you to join us. So anyway, I'm currently working on Arrow Comics 4.0 when I'm not doing other commercial art stuff, and sequential art is my love. It's my passion. So that's why I love doing this show on Sunday morning, because we try to talk positively about this industry and the wonderful art form that it is. So can we do that today, Russ?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. We'll see how it goes. Got a little group this morning. It's all good. We hope Glenn is doing okay. He's out running a little bit of an emergency errand this morning. We hope everything works out all right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Get back safe, Glenn.
yeah, be safe, drive safe. Hope things turn out all right. Also joining me this morning, morning for me, afternoon for him, Mr. Mike Jimmy. Mike Jimmy,
Good
introduce
morning,
yourself.
everyone. I am Mike Jimmy DeBruin of Fairies and Ends. I'm the creator of Loughran Cora and taking care of the European publishing of titles like Loughran Cora, The Radiant Sight, The Oswald Chronicles, and Tall Tales, and very soon as well, Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. Wow, I'm growing and I'm incredibly happy about it. It's
Look at
insane.
you with the library. Look at you with your
Yeah,
stable.
I know, right? I need a bigger rack.
The Inquisitors said that.
They did.
Yeah, we need a bigger rack.
Need a bigger rack. It's a Schneider. Is that Rob Schneider said that when he was walking
No,
back in
no,
the boat?
the
No.
Inquisitors.
We're going to need a bigger rack. No.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
That's true, too. Also joining us this morning is the great Russ Leach. Russ, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Russ Leach. I draw comics.
There we go. That was fast enough.
Yeah.
No mention of Doctor Who monthly or
Yeah.
Those things.
I draw stuff like Doctor Who. Done stuff for Marvel. Do stuff for other larger publishers. I can talk about soon.
we'll have
do
you
some
on in a couple weeks to
yeah.
do that.
Do some Doctor Who.
That'll be good.
Got my own book, Only Death Can Save Us, which is a love letter to the Bronze Age. So yeah, all that good stuff. In between all that stuff, I'll do
got
like
that- I've got that
storyboarding
book
and bits
right
and
here.
pieces, but mostly comics now. I'm feel very fortunate to say.
Sweet. And also joining us today, first time in, special guest, Joseph A. Mike.
Welcome.
Joseph, introduce yourself.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Joseph. I've been in indie comics for about 10 years. Some self-published titles, book out with Top Cow and Image. We do the Heroes for Causes books.
Show that. Let me
And then,
blow you up here. Show it again.
Yeah.
So this is Pathway, which is for cystic fibrosis. And this one is Center Ice. And that one is for childhood brain cancer. And we're working on one for the Children's Diabetes Foundation. And most recently, we're doing The Misadventures with Nicholas Tourist. And it's a book coming out from Scout Scoot. And we got a Kickstarter running right now until the 30th.
Cool.
Very cool.
Scout Scoot. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Sin Killer's in the house. Morning, Sinnies. Morning, Marvy. Hope you're doing well. You're welcome in too. I can send you a link if you want. Just let me know. Marvy's from Portugal, so we'll be really international. Joseph, where are you from?
Ohio.
Okay.
Oh.
We won't hold that against you. You're in Michigan. It's all right. No,
We don't
no big
judge.
deal. I've got a stepson in Ohio, in Columbus. So it's okay. We have he's still a Lions fan though, because he loves the losers. That's what it is. But hey, I have no topics. I have no nothing planned. We're going to talk about misadventures here in a little bit, and we can't talk about what Russ is working on. Probably on your board right now, right?
Do you know what? No.
There we go. So the way it works. Well, at least we can't talk about it right now.
Are we going?
Second week in a
No.
row.
I can talk about Only Death Can Save Us. I can talk about Doctor Who at the moment. That kind of stuff. I can talk about my purchases this week. There you go.
There we go.
Talk
Let's
about
do that. What'd you buy this week?
What I bought this week. I bought from a guy called Izzy, who I know on Facebook picked this up, and instantly he showed it. I thought, I've got to have that. It's got a lovely Alex Ross cover,
Ooh.
and it's
hang on. You got to show that again. I got to blow that up. That's
really nice.
there. You go.
And
Yeah,
it's got three stories of Galactus and the Fantastic Four. One of which is my favorite story of all time, mostly because it's drawn by John Buscema.
Okay.
But I saw it had lovely. It's been recolored, but it's very flat colors. So
luckily very flat cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's quite nice. It's quite a neat little book.
Yeah.
And the stuff with John Buscema
hang
is
Boom.
typically wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
I look at the lines on it. Joe Sinnott doing the mastery with the inks there.
That middle
Just
panel
dynamic.
on the right is just so typical.
Oh, he drew Reed Richards just so well.
Mhm.
So I got that this week, and I picked up something that was a little bit more expensive.
Now we're entering boasting territory here now.
It wasn't one of the art books, but what I did pick up was the Essential Warlock.
There you go.
Which is, look at the size of that, man.
Yeah.
Look at it. It's just nice and thick.
That's a lot of black and white wonderness. Yeah.
I've already got a reprint again for the flat colors of Stalin's run, but this is everything that Warlock was right from the start.
Okay.
The
Earth 2 stuff.
Yeah, the Earth 2 stuff. So it's like,
a lot
Marvel
of Gil Kane in
Premiere.
that.
Yeah, a lot of Gil Kane. Marvel Premiere, Strange Tales, all that kind of stuff, right up until Warlock, Power of Warlock. And it's just wonderful, great fun. And a couple of weeks back, I bought the artisan copy of Gil Kane. And
Gil Kane Spider-Man.
Yeah, the Gil Kane Spider-Man. And I just thought, oh, yeah, I've got to have this as well. So there you go. Those are my purchases this week.
Cool. I don't think I finally got or bought Richard Ayala's Roach Balls this week. Apparently I did buy into the campaign, but for some reason it didn't register. Maybe my card didn't go through or whatever.
It sometimes does that, yeah.
Just no record of it whatsoever. And I'm like,
Is that on Indiegogo?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, Indiegogo and cards are a bit weird.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes they just don't go through and people have to do it 2 or 3 times.
No,
I think it's international purchases.
Yeah.
But that seems a bit weird for you because you're in the States. So.
Yeah, and Rich is in New York. So.
Yeah, very, very odd.
Yeah. The golden rule is see if you get an email if you backed something from Indiegogo. If you got the email, then it's confirmed and then there's no card issues.
Could have sworn I had the email. Thought everything was good to go, but no record of it anywhere. So
what are you going to do?
That is weird.
I was digging through my old books that I had because I get a bunch of stuff and file it away until I get a chance to look at it. And I ended up finding this. It's the Epic Collection of Star Wars.
Oh, look at that.
It's the original Marvel years, the Legends. And what's really great about this is I got it at Ollie's.
No.
$5.99. Wow.
That's a bargain.
Wow.
Oh, more than a bargain. And it's in color.
Oh, look at that.
Nice.
I'm going to have to get that now. That's next on the list.
And that's, I bought a couple copies. I put together shows, or used to before the bug hit. I'm going to do another one here probably in April. But this has got Star Wars 1 through 23 and material from Pizzazz magazine number 1 through 16 and Star Wars Weekly in the UK number 60. So it's a collection, really a big collection of the Star Wars that Marvel printed, and it's got a variety of people in it. Everything from the original, the first adaptation from Howard Chaykin that has been reprinted an infinite amount of times, and that's the most reprinted story ever in comic history that I know of, and it was reprinted in every format that Marvel could think of. You know, they were like going, what's another format we could print this thing in? How about doing it little paperback size? Done. You know, how about big tabloid size? Done. And this is Howard Chaykin at his rawest. I mean, they probably asked him to, it's probably one of the quickest jobs he ever got to do. And it's really in his stripped down style, just as he was letting his style come out from You know, he had worked at Continuity, I think, or with around like Giordano and all of these realistic artists for so long. And here he comes kicking out this book in such a weird style. Didn't take to very much when I first saw it, but I just love Chaykin's material now. And it's probably one of those books that he looks at or works that he looks at now and cringes a little bit, going, "Oh, I could have done that a little better."
That will have
but it's still beautiful.
Yeah, that will have some inks in it from the legendary Tom Palmer, will it not?
It does. Yeah, we were going to talk about Tom.
Yeah, who left us this last week.
But yeah, it's got let's see here. Inkers, Chaykin, Lealoa, Springer, Palmer, Austin, Wyachek, Gene Day, Al Milgram, Zugna, Dazunga, Hobart, Bill Ray, Jansen, Dave Cockrum, did inks.
Wow.
It's just amazing.
Wow, what a list.
Yeah.
A lot of everybody. You know, it's pencilers are Chaykin, Infantino. There's a Infantino story in here that was originally meant for John Carter of Mars that they went through and repurposed for Star Wars in a hurry. Simonson, Trempe, Cooper Berg, Tom Palmer did some pencils in this, Dzugna, and Cochran. So,
cool.
Just
what a
classic
list.
stuff. Classic.
Yeah.
And again, you know, it's like $5.99.
Okay.
I'd give this stuff away like this for door prizes and for prizes at shows to these kids. I say kids. Sometimes they are actual kids that had never read this stuff before, and it's like, here, you're going to enjoy this. Like I caught at the also at Ollie's, I bought as many as I could of the Captain Carrot and the Zoo Crew collection, the Showcase Presents, which was about yay thick. Went all the way up through the Oz Wonderland War, and I gave it away for the kids' costume contest at the show. It's like you don't know who these characters are, but you're gonna love this. And it's actually got a character in there called Salamandroid.
Oh,
yeah. Well then,
everyone's gonna love it.
Everyone will love it. Yeah. Joe, did you buy anything this week?
I kind of cheapskated at the garage sales. I got the whole collection of Star Trek: The Next Generation on DVD.
There you go.
And what's the other one? Voyager.
Sometimes that's the best way to go.
Yeah, they come in the big seven DVD cases.
Yeah.
7 volumes. So I got all of them for $15.
And DVDs.
Nice.
Who knew? You know?
Bargain.
Yeah, they were probably happy to see it, happy to sell it, and you were happy to have it. So it's all good.
Yeah, and now it's sitting on your shelf. No one can change it. It's all right.
Exactly. It's yours now. You own it. It's all good. We have a lot of media replay places up here now that take stuff, especially here in Flint. We had a guy that made a big living for a long time buying stuff as people were moving out. You know, he'd buy for nickel on the dollar and then resell for the dollar, you know, or the dollar on the $10 or whatever. Always had a large selection of stuff. All of his comics were all reading copies, but could never find anything that you'd want to send in. And all the really valuable stuff he kept in the basement of one of his stores. If he'd have somebody who kind of knew about comics that would go through and pull all the valuable stuff. He had a storefront at one point that had all the valuable stuff, and this guy would get up on eBay and figure out all the values. And that store didn't last very long because people didn't want to pay eBay prices for a lot of this material. And he always had a weird idea of grading books to start with. Stuff that he thought was fine was actually in good, that kind of thing. And so they didn't get a lot of sales, so the store only lasted 5-6 years, and he shut it down, moved all of that stock into the basement of one of his locations. And then one day that location got struck by lightning, had a lightning bolt go straight through the middle of the store, right in the basement, and just boom.
Oh, wow.
Blew everything out.
Good Lord.
It was a very spectacular fire. And now he's down to one location that's like 15 miles away from where I'm at now in a small town, not quite so small town for around here called Owasso. And he's still open. He's still got stuff, but he doesn't have that stuff. So that's pretty crazy. It was a pretty heartbreaking moment. The week before that, though, and I still have the book here handy, though it's a gigantic book. I was at his shop, the one that burned down, and wedged between two comic racks that were, I'm looking at everything to see if there's some reading copies. That's all he has. I ended up finding this. Oh, let me get it. Let me move a few things around here. I ended up finding this monster. The Smithsonian collection of newspapers.
That's the one I saw yesterday.
Did you really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that is pretty thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hardback. It's beautiful. It's got examples in it. It talks about comic strips. It's the Smithsonian collection of comic strips all the way up through, from the inception, I think up through the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. They've got Hagar the Horrible in here from 74. So all the way through the mid-70s.
Hagar.
Yeah.
Hagar. They used to run that just under AXA in the sun when I was a kid. You got, I think Andy Cat was in the Mirror.
Yeah, and Joe, if you don't know who Axa was a female barbarian, female with an axe who had never had a top, never wore a top.
Never had a top. No.
So over in England, they have whole different rules for nudity. They don't consider breasts, I guess, to be the sex organ we do over here. So.
It's fine all the time as long as you don't get caught.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. But it's got some great strips. Anyway, I ended up, I picked it up, dusted it off, literally dusted it off, looked at the inside cover. And they hadn't priced it in a long time. Had $8.
Nice.
I walked it up to the counter. I said, is this $8? And she looks at it and goes, that says $8. So I guess it's $8. I said, well, I'll buy that for $8. So I bought it. And then less than a week later, the store burned down.
Yeah, so I found that yesterday at the convention I was at. Well, more like a comic market. It was outside. Wrapped in plastic, new, and I think the guy asked like 300 euros for it.
Cool.
So I was like, nope, not for me.
Well, considering it was a big import in the strips that are in there, because they've got strips dating back to the 1900s. I mean, right at the inception of comics. So it's really a phenomenal book. I've got it close to me because I was talking about it a few weeks ago, but I also use it as a reference tool because one of these days I'm going to get back to my history of comics book that I was working on as soon as I'm done with I'm working on a book right now about my COVID experience. So I was 8 weeks on the respirator and had to relearn how to do everything again. So that book kind of takes precedent, especially now that the bug seems to be waning a little bit. I'm hoping to get that out here pretty quick. I'm thinking of running the campaign exact to the year of when I was down and on the respirator because it's taken me so long to get everything done. But pretty happy with the way it's looking. It'll be fun. I tell everybody it's a funny book. It'll be a funny book. So.
Well, with you, there's little doubt about that.
It'll be cartoony looking at least. Yeah. But it's been good. It's been good. Any purchases, Mike, Jimmy?
Not really. No, I didn't really go around. I've just been working all week, so didn't get around. And yesterday I was too tired to consider browsing on the miles and miles of long boxes filled with books.
I hear you. Yeah. Sometimes you have to.
Oh yeah.
No, good. I already showed off all my purchases a week or two ago. I was at a convention, picked up some graphic novels for $5.
No.
All the culls from Marie and John Severin from Marvel, all put together into one book from Dark Horse, of all things, all the old Marvel cull adaptations. And a couple of weeks ago, I did pick up a copy of Barb the Berserker. That if you're not aware of, I picked this up at Sam's Club on a discount for like $9. It's a hardback book. It's a kid's graphic novel. Looks like it was drawn by a kid, lettered, but I'm sure it wasn't. But Dan and Jason, whoever they are, the wild fantasy stories of a young cartoon barbarian. So, much like Misadventures looks like that. It looks better. The artwork on that is more stylized than this is. This looks So anymore, they're trying to look primitive in order for kids to be accessible to it. So,
which is a good thing. I mean, we need
it is.
that.
Yeah. Especially when you have people like Dave Pilkey, you know. And I keep telling everybody out there, if you get a chance, another hardback book, Scholastic is probably the #1 publisher of graphic novels out there right now, especially here in doing American stuff and here in the States. $12.95, $12.99.
Wow.
I think the price on this is that they sell a ton of them. And it's because it's Pilkey, they're selling in the, couple 100,000 of them at least. And the artwork in this is primitive and raw. The lettering is all done by hand, probably through the computer. I know he's got this down to a science now because he kicks books out every couple months. But the Cool Kid Cat or Comic Club, or the Cat Kid Comic Club, is so important right now, especially going to the schools, because it's telling the kids all about sequential art, all about doing comics. They all get together and draw their own comics. So they have little stories inside the book done by these cats. And I think there's a goldfish that's their teacher that runs the school comic club, encouraging other schools to do comic clubs, and have kids create their own comics. And in the first volume, I probably told this story on the air before, but the whole first volume, it's the kids bringing in their comics and the teacher's freaking because they're doing comics about poop and farts and, bloody things and all this. And she's going, you can't do that. We're in school. You can't do this kind of work. And then by the end of the book, she realizes that that's their release valve. That's how they get their emotions down on paper. And then she's like, yeah, do whatever comics you want. It's a great art form. Let's do it. And then in the back of the book, they teach the kids all how to draw the poop emoji. Amazing. And this is a book that went through all the schools in Scholastic. And so far, I haven't heard of one mom complain. Who knew? It's pretty crazy. But, show them how to draw almost anything else, and you'll get at least 1 or 2 moms upset.
Oh, yeah.
Did every kid try drawing their own comic book when they were in preschool and elementary, or is it just like our group, like the people that were into comics?
Not everybody, but yeah. Back when I was coming in, doing comics was nerd, nerd geek fest.
Yeah.
I'm a senior, my senior yearbook. I've got a picture of me hunched over drawing comics during study hall. With the tagline underneath, it's a bird, it's a plane, it's Randy on it, But I was always looked at as the comic geek because that's what I picked that up at early on. My uncle gave me a book, and I should dig out that book and show it. But and I really should too, because it's literally in pieces. I have it in a grocery bag, plastic grocery bag, ripped to shreds with crude drawings on the inside. From the Walter Lantz studio on how to draw Woody Woodpecker, Buzz Buzzard, Andy Panda, Homer Pigeon.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wally the Walrus, all of those characters. I took to that like a fish out of water and started doing my own comics. My parents used to ration me to 2 pages of notebook paper a day because I was tearing through their ream of notebook paper. So I figured out early on, if you draw a plus sign in the middle of the paper, you've actually got 4 smaller pieces of paper. And then pretty soon you could tell a story from panel to panel. So early on, 8, 9, 10 years old, I was doing my own comics.
Yeah, I pretty much did the same about that time. Yeah, like we got a sketchbook for school, and I was like, you know what? We can fix this to hold more pieces of paper.
Yeah. Later on, I was terrorizing my parents so much, drawing everywhere. My dad ended up going out and buying a set of paints. And he goes, in your room, paint that wall. And you can put on it whatever you want, as long as it's decent, So I painted, started painting cartoon characters on there and just big collage of characters. So I never did finish that wall. I ended up moving out before I got it done. But
you think it still exists today?
No, I'm sure it's been painted over a long time ago. But I had an awesome Scrooge McDuck on there, I'll tell you that.
Nice.
It looked really good. It took a while doing the shading on it, almost 3-dimensional looking. I was real happy with it. But it's probably long gone now. It's been years. So, house has been sold about 3 times over. Comic Talk with Pops. Pops in the house. I got a Parody Press, The Mighty Four, a true funny book. There we are.
Oh yeah.
That is
Don't
in my press at the moment. Sugar Chris in the house. Hey, Sugar, how you doing?
Hey, Sugar.
Sugar, anytime you want to come on, you just drop me a line on Facebook. You want to be part of the conversation, you are more than welcome on my show anytime you want to come in. Pops, how did you look? How did you book Leonardo? Randy, I've been trying to book a turtle for months. LOL. Oh, okay, gotcha, Pops. Yeah. Joe asked to come on.
Now I get it. Okay, yeah,
I got it.
That took a while.
That's okay. I don't know the color of the turtle masks. So is that Leonardo, Joe?
Leonardo.
Okay, good on you, Pops. Says today for comics, Tomb of Dracula's inker Tom Palmer passed away in 81. Yes, he did. Yep. It wasn't just Tomb of Dracula. He did just about everything for Marvel at one point. I had a story I told Mike Jimmy. I had a buddy, Kirk Jarvinen, who worked in comics for a very short period of time. Ended up doing a mini series for DC that was Aquaman Time and Tide that Peter David wrote and bumped the numbers up to giving Aquaman his own series and all this. And he got a Avengers fill-in he was so happy with and so happy about, took his time on it and did it in his own style. And he has a style that's pretty close to Michael Golden in looks. Just wonderfully loose, cartoony. Golden, Art Adams, right in that, right in that look. So happy when he sent it in, gets it back printed, and he looks at it, and it's Tom Palmer. Tom Palmer did the inks on it, and it looks exactly like Tom Palmer. He was so heartbroken. But Tom was just that powerful of an inker that almost anything he did, unless you were so crazy stylistic like Gene Colan.
I was about to say the work he did over Gene Colan was
just
amazing. But
and
his
for
work,
such a long period of time, that was a big long run. That was just amazing.
But his work, it's like Joe Sinnott. Joe Sinnott was such a recognizable inker, and was so somebody was talking about, I can't remember what they were talking. They were talking about faces and bits and pieces and being having a continuous run and just the way that the art was developed. And it's like you can't knock like Joe Sinnott right the way through from Kirby all the way through the Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
like so many pages, and they all had the same look and feel. It was such a great continuity to the way that it looked, and there were so many different artists on it. Obviously, Jack Kirby and
Buscema
and John Buscema being the biggest characters, as it were, the biggest sort of I would say the biggest styles that were on there. But everything just had this look to it, and it took me a long time because I loved that stuff when I was a kid, and it took me a long time to sort of separate Joe Sinnott and John Buscema.
Okay,
as to what was affecting me, what was it that was really getting under my skin. I found out that both of them were but for different reasons. It's just inkers like Palmer and Sinnott, they're not just inkers, they're true artists.
Yes,
that's what they are.
So
and if I had work and Tom Palmer had done it and it just looked like Tom Palmer, I'd be over the moon.
There you go.
I'd be flipping down the road,
I hear you. Yep. I was at a buddy of mine has health problems. Has always had health problems, but he's gone around and gotten a lot of drawings from a lot of people. And he goes from show to show now and puts them on display called Dan's Dream. And he had this picture of Submariner up there in pencil, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, who is that? That's amazing. Look at that art. And then I went and looked at the signature. It was Joe Sinnott. A penciled Submariner, and it was just phenomenal. And I'm sitting there looking at it going, how come Joe wasn't penciling this whole time? Because it's gorgeous. He must have been a lot faster as an inker.
Yeah, because he was just such a fabulous inker.
Yeah.
And because he gave that gloss, he gave that feel, that continuity and look. He was doing a lot of commissions and stuff at the end. As far as I'm aware, he was doing a lot more of his own pencils, and you could see just how good he was. But that they put him on that because that's what he did. So it's What can
Well,
you
back
do?
then everything was a machine.
Yeah.
Chunk
Yeah.
to chunk, get it done, get it out. Because a lot of times they'd get fined if they didn't have that book in on time. They'd get
But
if they couldn't get it to the printer on time.
Yeah.
The printer levied a heavy fine to them.
The thing about that machine, the thing about that conveyor belt was that actually it turned out incredible artists because they just threw themselves at their boards and didn't stop. They had no choice. They just kept drawing and drawing and drawing or whatever it was they were doing. And that's why they ended up being legends.
Yeah.
That's why they ended up being so damn good. And we don't quite have that anymore.
No, but the majority of these guys had come from decades worth of experience already.
Exactly.
Not just at drawing, not just at doing comics, but most importantly at hitting deadlines. That's what had to be done.
Yeah.
You know, you go through the EC line, for example, or the Charles Burrow line that Crime Does Not Pay, where I believe it was Trempe and Tusca came from. Just phenomenal work. Unbelievable. I think Vinny Coletta come out of that too. Doing some unbelievable work. And then, crime stories and urban legend stories, that kind of stuff. But Bill Gaines and Burrow had this unbelievable talent of attracting just top-notch talent.
Yeah, but you can see how it crafts you.
Yeah,
how it makes you in the end. So I came to illustrating comics late. It was 2010, but I'd had a career in production, in publishing and design. I knew what I was about, but obviously I didn't know anything about the comic world, else maybe I might have left it a bit longer. but I got involved, and it wasn't until I started drawing every day. I've been fortunate enough to get enough work that I can draw every day. Yeah. And I'm now at a situation where I'm pumping out. I'm pumping out it's 12 pages of pencils and inks, okay, every month, plus my own books, plus other work. And so it's got to a point. What I'd really like to do is I'd love to do 22 pages a month. That would be great. But it's not happening because I'm disparate and I'm over different projects. But what is happening is that I'm starting to get into a real flow, and I can see it benefiting my work. I can see just in 6 months the benefit of hitting the board every day and drawing every day with your inking or drawing or whatever it might be. Seeing the benefits of that, so you can see how these artists who were working far hard. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of working hard, but I've got the luxury of playing with my style and adding bits in and a little bit more time to do this. These guys had no time; they just got the stuff done, and it's almost like it knocked them into shape. It made them. It made them granite almost in the same way that, like, being a warrior makes you this granite warrior over time. That was what they are, but from an art perspective, they were just they were just everything. They could just do anything and draw anything and produce anything. And that's not
they had the resources to tap back on, because back then it was long before the net. You couldn't pop into Google Images and type up what you needed.
No. I mean, that makes things so much easier than having to see
some of these old workhorses,
something or go to a library or
you see some of these old workhorses like Joe Kubert, and you see his workspace, and he's got an entire wall of file cabinets. Why are that's all photo reference?
Well, I started off with that. I had like boxes full of photo reference, and this was when I was trying to get back in mid 90s. So I was at that point in time, I was penciling on just on paper and doing it the old way, and I had boxes and boxes of reference and a light box, a big old solid light box back then, and things happened and it didn't happen for me. That's why I came back in 2010. But it was so much harder to get anything done than it is now. And now I pencil digitally and ink traditionally, which means I have work to sell. It means I have physical pages, which I love.
I don't think I've plugged my light box in about 5 years.
No, I also think that I think that traditional inking there's something to it.
It definitely is. Yes,
there's something extra in it that you just can't get. And I think digitally, I know I love the lines from my first book. It's like they're all smooth and beautiful, but it's like there's something not quite there. There's something missing. There's an energy that isn't there. So I love traditional inking, but penciling digitally it's a breeze compared to what I used to have to do. So, you know, statting things, laying them down on your light box, putting your paper over the top, retracing, doing whatever you were doing. Whereas now it's called layers.
Yeah.
It's great.
You just grab it and stretch it however you need. And you sit there and just draw right over it. You're done.
It makes life that much easier. And then when you come to ink it, it's just like there's this freedom that you get for the inking. So.
Yeah.
When I first got my Wacom tablet, I always said, I'll just use it for commercial work because the other comic work, I'm definitely going to want to do physical. And then the first job, the commercial job I did was in sequentials, and that was it for me. I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to be digital for a while. So.
I keep my traditional ink work for stuff that I think might be valuable or means something to me personally.
Sure.
I've done plenty of other comic book work that I've just, since I've been inking traditionally, that I've just gone back and digitally inked because it was just a job. It was just like get the job, get the page done, get it out.
Exactly.
Whereas when they mean something to you, or think that because the characters you're using might be valuable, then it's like it's definitely worth doing it traditionally.
That's why you're working at the board now, working on the job you can't talk about.
That's the well, actually, this one's slightly different. This is all digital, but I just can't talk to you about it.
Oh, okay.
but the other one, no, that's right. No, I can't. Yeah, it's a couple of weeks. Well,
so there's more than one job you're under an NDA you can't talk about. Okay, it'll get there. It'll get there.
I mean, I responded to a because I don't do a lot online anymore. I tend not to talk to people too much. I don't get involved in the bullshit. There seems to be an awful lot of people shouting at each other. But I did drop a comment on a video that was talking about hobby versus professionalism, or it being a job, and I mentioned that I just like I don't have time for all the crap.
Yeah,
you know, I'm too busy working. If you think of it as a hobby, then fine. That's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that doesn't mean that you won't act professionally, produce professional standard work. Right. Of course you will. There's no line to be drawn here. No. But if you want it to be your job, if you want it to be the thing that you do, then you have to throw yourself at it.
Yeah.
And you have to apply yourself, and you are what your intent and your actions require of you. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you just got to do it. And so what that means is that sometimes you get so involved in the work that you're doing, the projects you're doing, and especially if you're under some kind of secretive NDA or whatever, you can't talk to anybody about it anyway.
Yeah,
I'd love to have a camera over my shoulder to show you what I'm doing, but I'm not allowed.
Well, you could. You just couldn't show it immediately.
No, I mean, I'll go through it. I'll go back through some stuff, but it's like,
like the whole thing, like hobby versus job. What I'm hearing is usually, I don't want to put myself in a position where I have to have work constantly. Where if you want something as a job, that means you're gonna have to work constantly. Like even a day job, you have to work constantly. Mm-hmm. Just because you check out at 5 p.m. doesn't mean that you're like it's not a job. And art, for the most part, right now for me either, is not all fun stuff. I love doing it, but it's not all fun.
No. That's the way it works.
So, Joe, you draw or you write?
Mostly write. Yeah, I've tried my hand at drawing. I do graphic design and digital art, but not, anywhere near Russ's or yours or Mike's caliber. It's manipulating shapes and logo design and flyer layout, that kind of stuff. So I guess I'm kind of a new age artist, but not near the raw talent of y'all. So
we call those graphic artists. That's all right. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
I do a lot of that work too.
I was a designer for a long time. I wasn't a very good one.
Yeah.
I can do the website, but draw a character, not possible.
Oh. You'd be amazed. I teach kids how to draw, or used to, before the bug hit. Used to teach after school just to keep kids' minds occupied, and it's seriously, the way that I learn, I teach them the way that I learned, which probably corrupts them for any other art class from that point on, which is basic shapes: circle, circle, square, square. You know, curved line, look, it's a body, that kind of thing. So it's always like, hey kids, draw a circle. Hey kids, draw a circle. You know, you sit there and look at the classroom and go, here you go. Look.
Is there a moment when they catch on and they're like, aha, like that aha moment?
That is the reward. That's why you do this, is to see the kids hit that aha moment, or literally, like they show in the cartoons, the light bulb goes off over their head and they go, oh, you know what? This is really cool. It's like, yes, it is. This is why I come here and teach you, you know. Can't see it. Let me blow it up. Hang on.
Circle, circle, dot, dot.
Yep.
Circle, circle, dot, dot.
Yeah. And it took me the longest time. Part of my appreciation for Jack Kirby's work was sitting there and going, oh, look, that's a square. That's 3 squares. That's a finger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he's got it down to such a science that he can draw it. You know, he sees it in his head already. Square, 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 square.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when he draws a hand, square, 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 flattened square, you know, it's just amazing to sit there and look. The arm is 3 circles. You know, forearm, mid-arm.
All my creatures are circles. If you look at them, literally
just a circle.
Circles.
Yeah. And it's so much fun to see that. I had a kid in, because I taught, once you go into a school, you're usually invited back unless you're really, really bad.
Yeah.
But I was doing a one school I did 5-6 years in a row, and I ended up catching the kids all the way through their classes, usually 4 years in a particular school. Last year, this kid's there. The first 3 years, he was always the class clown. He was an irritant. Sometimes I had to move him out of the room in order for anybody else to learn. But very early on in the last season he was there, that light bulb went off and he started bringing in his own drawings, creating his own characters, doing his own comics. It's just, that's the ultimate reward to doing all of this, is to see these, that so cool. Like I was saying about Dave Pilkey and the Cat Kid Comic Club, is that he's encouraging kids to go out there and do sequential art. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it'll never be perfect. You just need to go out there and tell your story and get it done. I used to print a newspaper in my area that had comic strips and that in it, as much local talent as I could find, Flint Comics and Entertainment. And one of the strips I loved carrying in there was Cynical Man by Matt Feazell. And if you're not familiar, I'm sure you're familiar with Matt Feazell's work because he's local to where we are. But Matt lives in Hamtramck, and he is a genius with stick figures. He can tell stories with stick figures because early on he tried drawing a conventional comic art, and he just was not happy with it at all. But he could tell a story real quick, real fast using stick figures. And he is incredibly good in his sequential work, but it's all stick figures. And it's just amazing work. He does Cynical Man and another character called Stupid Boy, which is one of my favorite creations of his, about a stupid boy going around doing dumb things. And that's part of the humor. Cynical Man is always cynical. And there's a legion of heroes that he's got, or a board of heroes, I think it is, something like that they all get together. He's got whole characters created. Did a movie one time where everybody was wearing paper mache almost helmets in the versions of his characters. It's pretty funny. But he started out, he became a master of the mini comic too. He could take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and quarter fold it and trim it along the top and staple it and sell it at shows for 50 cents a hit. You know, that, and he did pretty well with that. Got along quite a bit on it. So still doing it as far as I know. I'm not sure what he's doing now because I stopped printing the paper back in 2019, but kind of fell out of touch with him. But I need to have him back up on a show. But I always love it doing the classes and kids going, I can't draw. I says, can you draw a stick figure? Yeah, I can draw a stick figure. I said, well, look at this strip. This guy draws stick figures and he tells an awesome story. That's what you need to do. So it doesn't matter how well you draw. It's how well you tell that story, how well you're able to pair the dialogue with the illustration that you have to get your point across to entertain people.
Didn't Frank Miller start as only a writer and then he drew his own?
I don't think so. I think he always drew and wrote.
Okay.
He started out when he first started working, he picked up gigs at Gold Key where he was doing the artwork. he did a couple of Twilight Zones. He won't tell anybody what they or where or when they work. They didn't credit the artist back then, and he's not happy with the work. But I think the first job he got outside of a couple of fill-ins was Daredevil that Roger Stern was writing, if I'm not mistaken. And then he's like, well, let me take a crack at it. Here's a story with this past love named Electra character. Hey, what do you think of this? Just blew up from there. I read that. I remember reading that when it was on the stands at first. Everybody was howling about the guy's art, and I ended up picking it up and going, it's okay. And then that Electra story was just unbelievable, just incredible classic stuff. So can't argue with the quality of the talent there. Just phenomenal work. In fact, I pulled his Ronin book. I found that, dusted that off a couple of weeks ago. I keep meaning to sit down and read that through because should be good. Do you want me to show that, Russ? Or
yeah, you can show that.
I don't want to show it if it's going to get you into trouble.
No. I wouldn't have shared it if it wasn't shown.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Ooh.
So this is digital, but it's from Draw the Marvel Way. So it's just that I had some hands there, and they're not quite squares, which would probably be the starting point, but they are just shapes. Mm-hmm. They're just breaking the fingers down into shapes.
Sure. They almost have a Will Eisner look to them, to me.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah.
There you go.
I could be wrong though, but it's just my opinion.
Eisner's,
Probably in the inking. He was Eisner was such an individual inker. That, he had his own beautiful style.
Just just shapes.
Pardon me.
And then and understanding how which way the joints work. Obviously, otherwise it just looks like they're all broken. But
there we are, cylinder on top of cylinder. So
apparently.
Do you use one of those desktop mannequins, Russ?
Nah, I used to. Yeah, I've got one. This is up there. I used to, but
it rarely pulls it down anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to the point where you can see it in your head.
Yeah. I've got some of the smaller ones, some of the Japanese ones as well, which I thought were quite cool because I've got a big old wooden one. And I bought some Japanese ones about 2-3 years ago. Yeah. And it was specifically because I wanted to look at the perspective of the bodies. But yeah, so often now you've got a lot. It's exactly like I was saying earlier. You do it every day. You just do it again and again and again. And it becomes your brain is a muscle. It just becomes a muscle memory. Yeah. It's just like, all right, I know where everything goes. So I know where all the muscles sit and what have you. And then it doesn't mean that you're infallible. You obviously get it wrong. But you can you can go back to a drawing and go, oh, right, okay, the foreshortening isn't quite right there. Those bottom abdomen muscles need to tuck up that little bit further, and it goes underneath the shape. But it's just understanding how all that works.
It's seeing where you were an inch off previously. It's building on the fact that you start seeing more of yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Pop's dog, Lassie Lives Matter. Hashtag. I want to thank Pops for being in the chat and dropping all the links. John Celestri says, good morning, guys. See you in a few minutes. Always welcome aboard, guys. Ryan, glad you're here with us this morning. Good morning, everyone. How are you? We're all doing good. Thankfully, like I said, Pops is in the chat dropping links. Thank you so much. Ryan's his first comic book you ever bought. Do you remember?
Asterix.
John?
Always Asterix.
Are we going round?
Yeah.
First one that was ever given to me.
John,
I
remember.
Sorry,
Joe. I meant to ask Joe. Go ahead, Russ.
I'll go with Joe. Go with Joe first.
Joe, remember the first comic you ever bought?
It was, I don't know, it was around the Carnage era when Carnage came out for Amazing Spider-Man. So I guess that puts me at a date. But it was that run of Amazing Spider-Man. Remember who's the villain, Cardiac or whatever? The guy that had the boomstick. He had the blue mask and the gray body.
That sounds about right.
Cardiac, I think. He was a minor villain.
Okay.
But that's the first one that I remember. It was like Amazing Spider-Man 364, 360, somewhere in there.
No offense, but you are the youngster here in the group. Probably even younger than Mike Jimmy.
Oh my God. This is a unique moment. I need to cherish this.
There we are. JV says Joseph has the best beard on the stream. There we are.
Thank you.
Everybody has their favorites. Pops says it's my Frog G impersonation. Thank you, Pops. Glad you're there. Open draw stream. Says okay, I'm done. So he's got a lot of links in the chat. Marv says I ink traditionally if I want to sell full digital now, unless I have commissions.
Yeah, fair.
When do we get more Spanx, Randy? I love that stuff. Thanks, Pops. Thanks for asking. I am working on when I'm done with the current book that I'm working on. I am working on revising Spank the Monkey on the Comic Market. That covers the entire history of comics through the eyes of an angry little monkey. So, who's a comic shop retailer? As he brings a group of people along with him, goes through the entire history of comics and talks about the craziness that is the direct market and how everything has evolved over the years. It's an amazing it's an amazing chain, as the next link is built upon the previous links being broken or screwed over. So. It's a fascinating. It's always fascinated me. Pop says Elektra's still my favorite female character. Elektra Assassin's great book series. There we are. Another link. And flubber out. Oh, there we go. Somebody was already blocked.
Yeah.
Did you block him? I don't even see him there. What about JV? What did JV say that you blocked him?
No. Thanks to Pops in the chat, who's wanting me in DM.
Oh, Pops has a wrench.
Okay. Yeah, but
that's fine.
He's been trolling for a couple of weeks now. So
again, thanks.
Goodbye.
Well, he was all right there for a minute, talking about Joe's beard.
Yeah, he complimented my beard. Why would you do so fast?
No. To be fair, there were some compliments, but yeah, from what
every once in a while they drive right off a cliff and they have to be blocked. Right? Glad you're there, Pops. Really, John. Thanks for coming on board. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Not bad. Joe, have you ever met John?
I'm not sure. Was he on the show last time at Indie Volt or?
No, I don't think so. But he's been on Indie. He was on Indie Volt in the past. We don't mention Indie.
We don't go there
anymore. But if you don't know John or are familiar with his credentials, we'll watch your face as John introduces himself. Introduce yourself, John.
Okay, well, as Randy says, I'm John Celestri. I've been an animator and a comic book artist since about 1974. I'm mostly known for animating the first appearance of Boba Fett in the Star Wars Holiday Special, working on Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, He-Man and She-Ra and Rock and Rule, and doing a bunch of Batman commercials. Worked on in the industry for many, many years, worked on Raggedy Ann and Andy. And now I'm doing my own series of comic books, and which Mike Jimmy will be printing and distributing in Europe for me.
There we go.
I'm looking forward to printing those, but I'm waiting for money.
Yes.
It's always money.
Yep.
Are you familiar with Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're not too young. It's all good.
He gets the best mustache award. If I get the best beard award.
John always gets the best mustache.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter who's here. He just wins hands down.
Yes. Yeah.
So, John, the first comic you ever bought, do you remember?
Oh, I think I'm trying to remember this. This is the first appearance. It was a Superman comic book, and it was Super Gorilla. It was like 1956, 1957, yeah, I remember pleading with my mom to buy it.
Comic Code Authority in full swing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I pulled off that little thing that says, you'll never have to buy me another one ever.
Until the next time we're here. Yeah. No parent was fooled by that remark.
No.
Nobody. No.
So was that a 10-cent comic?
Oh yeah.
Oh, 1956, 50. Yeah.
So what was it like? You know, because today a kid's got to be like, okay, I got to spend $5 to pick up a comic. What was it like plunking down a dime for a comic back then? Was that like a big deal?
Oh yes, because I was what 8 years old, 9 years. I had 25 cents a month was my allowance.
Wow.
So you had to really choose what you were going to spend your money on without, really, about 25 cents was pretty good for a kid then, because you could get 2 comic books and a candy bar.
Yeah.
Or, and that was the big to do there. So we spent, and when it went up to 12 cents, boy, that was a 20% bump.
That was a revelation. Yeah.
It was a lot, but I still have a couple, 25 cents did well for a certain number, and then you had to bump it up to 50 cents because then they started with the 25-cent comic books, which were like 80 pages, 90 pages.
I'll never forget when they jumped from 12 to 15.
Oh,
because Gold Key was the first comic company to jump to 15 cents. And I'm like, 15 cents for a Roadrunner? Yeah. This better be a real special book.
15 cents was when they were doing Magnus Robot Fighter.
Yes, sir. Yeah, by the great Russ Manning. Yeah,
that was doing it. That's when that jumped up. But
how much was like gas on like movies back then, to put it in perspective, like alternative?
Okay. Perspective wise. I do remember standing in line with my folks. This is in Brooklyn and outside of the Lowe's Oriental Theater in Brooklyn. And the train, the elevated trains were going by. And I remember waiting online. I mean, you waited online to get to the movie. And I remember looking in, and it was 10 cents for a kid, 25 cents for an adult.
Wow.
And that was the what was it? That was the not matinee, but it was the regular full price. I remember, and then it even bumped up even further, even to the 1960, going on a Saturday, and it would be 10 cents for the matinee for a kid. So it could be 1960. 1959, because I'm 10 years old at the time. And back then, you were walking around and doing whatever you want when you were like 9 years old, 8 years old.
Back then, what was considered a matinee, though?
Matinee? Yeah. Oh, that was,
Was that a pile of shorts, a cereal, and 2 movies?
Oh, yeah, that was the morning. That was the morning, okay, because I remember it was your Saturday morning, because people hardly, we were the first one in the neighborhood to get a TV set in 1950. So I'm a TV kid. I'm born in 49. My dad had a TV set in 1950, black and white. We were one of the first neighborhood kids. But a lot of people didn't see, even at that time, there were families that didn't have phones. They'd have to go and, to a neighbor, or they'd go into the candy store and get something, and you had like 4 or 5 telephone booths in the candy store where you go in and plunk down your nickel or whatnot. So I'm really I'm a throwback. I mean, I'm telling you a lot of stuff from the neighborhood. But anyway, it would be a cereal, cartoons. Even then, going into the movies, you could go in anytime the show was running, and then you'd sit back and you'd sit in the theater and wait until you go through the whole room, because you would have at that time, they were competing with TV, so they were bringing people in. So you had your double features, and then a newsreel, and then a cartoon.
Wow.
So yeah, that was entertainment, and that was your standard throughout the 50s. TV then really got kicking in. There were just in 1960, Right, 1950s was doing all those double features and whatnot. They were, competing with TV, and they had the Panasonic, the panoramic, and the all kinds of, Vista Vision and what have you. That was a huge deal.
And when you watch an old movie and it says filmed in,
yes,
Spectracolor.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And half the movies were still in black and white.
Yeah.
So, but I do still remember as a teenager seeing Woody Woodpecker cartoons going up. It would, and they would be up on the theater. Tom and Jerry's doing. They weren't doing Warner. Every now and then they would do Warner Brothers. They still were running those through, but it depended upon what theater chain you were part of.
Right.
RKO had the Benson Theater. Lowe's was MGM. You go someplace else, then that would be a Paramount. And it was after all of the lawsuits and the antitrust things where the studios were broken up, and then suddenly you didn't have movie chains that were part of the motion picture, right? Industry generating stuff, which is very much now. I mean, you now have a situation where Prime and everybody has got their own production house. In many ways, is that very similar to that? So I don't know.
So what was the better value for you as a kid? Was it a comic book, or was it a matinee, or the kids' admission to a movie?
Comic book, because I kept it.
Yeah.
Kept it collected. Yeah.
And you don't, and I didn't rent it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a rental that could be pulled out away from me if somebody decided not to, or the internet went down, or the.
So you're saying it wasn't an NFT?
Pardon?
Yeah, you're saying it wasn't an NFT?
No. So that was to me, and we collected. We collected them as in, because I liked it, and then you traded it with your neighborhood kids, your friends. They would be, trading the comics, and I got this. I want to see this. How about? And so there was a lot of more entry ways of different variety of comics. It wasn't just all superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You had. I mean, one of my favorites was the Rawhide Kid.
Yeah.
The Kirby Rawhide Kick, and then you had all these various westerns. You had the various monster books. You had the superhero stuff, but then you also had the Warner Brothers. Everything that was possible, as a genre, or even there were Jerry Lewis comics.
Yeah, Bob Hope and Jerry Lewis both had their own lines.
Yeah, Bob Hope. And all of those. So you had a variety of material to look at, and it depended upon what your interest was. I mean, the number of girl comics, that were the Kathy Keene, everything, every studio, everybody had something different. So you weren't overwhelmed.
There was a period there when Timely was printing before Timely and Atlas merged and became Marvel. Timely was doing a line of female comics. They had Venus. They had Katie. Maybe Katie Keene was through them. Millie the model. Came through that. Yeah. They had whole lines. Romances were raging. Romance comics. They were raging all the way up to the mid 70s. I think maybe even the early 80s. Before they stopped. DC was the last publisher of romance comics. The romance magazines were going hard, and the Harlequin paperbacks were going big. And you had my local drugstore had a huge rack of nothing but paperbacks of all sorts of different types, and then magazines, and then a comic rack right at the end of the row, as far away from the men's magazines as possible.
Oh yeah.
And I used to come home from school every day and go in and arrange their comic rack, sometimes in alphabetical order, and they'd give me $1 worth of comics every week for doing it. And for me, that was major. That was 3 books.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mhm.
that was back when they were
comics,
30, 35 cents. Yeah.
For me, it was going to. There were various candy stores. There were that you would go to. It was 1, 2, 3, 4 in a 3-block stretch, but each one of them had a different news service that they would
Mhm.
order from. So therefore, you'd get DC Comics. The National Periodic would be one place. That had the biggest rack really at that time, because that's the one, because of all the various variety of books that they had. But then you'd go to another one, and it would have Charlton Comics, and then the other one you had maybe a mix here and there of other comics, and then there was one that they were the only ones that had the Atlas, the Marvel comics or the Atlas comics at that time, and you never knew when they would show up, and they were all bundled in metal wire, so you'd clip them, and you'd try and get. I, being the type of person I am, I hated mishandling my comics, so I hated when the wire broke the edging of the comic, and then you've got a lot of marble, a Marvel marbling or whatever it is, because it was such cheap paper that the chipping.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to find ones that weren't that way, but that was it.
And the comics were always the most mistreated bundle.
Oh yes.
From the distributor. It's a Funny Books. There you go. Boom, boom,
that's it. I mean, basically, I think in any shape or form, a publisher would get maybe 4 cents out of the 10, which is 40%. Out of that, but then they would return by ripping off the title of the book,
the top third of the book,
and then send back in the title of the book, and that's how they get their money back, and then they'd keep the book and then and sell it for 3 cents or whatever.
That was one of my big exposures to Charlton Comics. We had a convenience store where I was that was selling 5 comics for, I don't know, I think it was 50 cents at the time. But they were coverless, or the top third of the cover was gone.
Yeah.
So that's really that, and the local barbershop was my big introduction for Charlton Comics. I remember reading Blue Beetle and Son of Vulcan, sitting there waiting to have my hair cut.
Same thing with here. You had comics that people would handle. Like remember today, my God, you need to walk around with blue gloves. Just to be able to handle anything that you'll note that you probably don't see anything like that anymore.
Oh no. We used to all carry milk crates around, and usually on the weekend, the group of us would all get together. We had one person that collected all Captain America, one person collected all Spider-Man. I was the Avengers Defenders guy, and we would all get in the neighborhood and sit and read each other's books.
Yeah. My neighborhood barber was where I got my first copy of the Marvel Family.
Okay.
And it was because I was looking at this book. I was reading and waiting to get my hair cut. I'm maybe about 10 or 11, 12 years old, and I'm saying, this looks different. So, it's 1961, maybe 60, 61. So Captain Marvel
about 10 years after they stopped printing then.
No, about 8 years or something like that. Yeah. So it was this old copy, and I said, I said to the guy, to the barber, I said, well, can I buy this from you? And he says, well, what? It's an old comic. And I said, well, okay, it's 5 cents. I've got that. It is the last Marvel Family comic in which it said, and then there were none.
I remember that cover.
Oh my God!
I got it. I still have. I kept everything I could.
Fawcett knew they were going out, and they were allowed to print out their library. They had already.
It's the Marvel Family.
Yeah, they had already settled with DC. If you ever get a chance to look at that last Marvel Family cover, it's got the Captain Marvel, Mary Marvel, Captain Marvel Jr. in negative space, whited out.
Yeah.
with somebody else in the corner going, "Where did they go? They're gone. They're missing."
Yep.
It says that the Marvel family gone.
Yep.
On the cover. That was their last issue. It was Fawcett's great way of just flipping the bird off to DC as they walked out the door.
Yeah, that's
just letting everybody know we're done.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's it. And that
just classic.
To, the Marvel family. And
Fawcett's an amazing company. Somebody should write a book on one of these days because they were defiant. They were an amazing company of just they start Wonder Comics. They do a character called Wonder Man. That's a Superman ripoff. And did they really? Okay, there we are. Yeah.
Okay,
that's Tomorrow's, isn't it?
Tomorrow's publishing.
Yeah.
Cool.
They did Wonder Man for a couple issues. They got a cease and desist from DC, so they stopped Wonder Man and created Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And then they got a cease and desist about Captain Marvel, and they told them no. They just kept printing. They just ignored it and kept printing on. And then they didn't get taken to court until after World War II, when Captain Marvel got turned into a live action serial. Captain Marvel, the Shazam Captain Marvel, is really the first character to be filmed in live action.
Captain Marvel with Tim Tyler.
Yeah.
Was in 1941.
I was going to bring you on here in a second, Scott, and tell everybody that if you had Scott on here, if you were betting on Scott not making it today, you lost.
That's right. I've got the figures here, so let's see. Mike, you had me down for 8-3, not showing up. Joseph, I had you down for like 15-2. Boy, you really.
I think Brian is particularly disappointed.
Yeah, I imagine. And the rest of you guys, you all lost money. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Scott, introduce yourself.
Scott Rosenbaum, longtime pro in the comics industry. Marvel, DC, Warner Brothers, Cartoon Network, DreamWorks, Archie. I'm so tired.
Did you have a long night?
I did actually. It's feeling much better now, but I had something bum tooth that was really bugging me.
Ooh,
so
that's not good.
But I'm feeling much better now. I've got my morning liqueur.
Oh, okay.
So I'm feeling no pain.
You're doing the household remedy then.
Yeah.
Understand. Pop says Scott. Anyway.
Hey, yeah. Everybody chime in and tell me how much money you won or lost. And I think I'm going to be interested in seeing. I want my take.
My PayPal is
priceless. Yeah. Would love to go back just for a little while back to those days. That'd be fun.
Oh, I heard you talking about Fawcett before I came in.
Yeah,
it was amazing how they really stood their ground in a lot lot of ways.
They were making so much money they just didn't care. They were just mowing along till they couldn't do it anymore. They took DC to court. That court battle lasted for years, and then they finally got out pretty much on the court costs. A couple $100,000 is what it was. Well, back then that was big money, but a couple $100,000, which was probably the money DC had spent on their lawyers, with a promise that they'd stop printing comics. And at that point, that was shortly before they started doing the hearings and kicking the Comic Code Authority into effect. So.
Wow. Now who was it that created the Marvel family? Is that CC Beck?
CC was part of it, but Jeff, I want to say not Jeff, Parker, I think the guy's last name was. That the two of them, not really. I'm pretty sure Parker had the majority of it. CC came in on the look because CC come out of a advertising background.
Yeah, he was in the staff. He was the young guy, and he was a staff writer, or rather staff artist.
Yeah.
There
at Fox, because they were printing a wide variety of magazines at that point. And he was doing a lot of the illustration work for that.
Oh, Captain Billy Captain
Billy's
Bang is the first thing that they would do, that they did, and that started the whole thing for them.
And now the only reference really you hear about Captain Billy's Whiz Bang is at the start of The Music Man.
Yeah.
It mentions that the kid is out, looking through the pool hall window with a copy of Captain Billy's Whiz Bang tucked in his pocket.
Yeah.
Wow. Whose idea?
Captain Billy's Whiz Bang turned into Whiz Comics. First Whiz Comics had Captain Marvel in.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it for that? Was it the Tawny? Was the name of the one?
Tawny. Yeah, Talkie Tawny.
Yeah. Who's
I don't know.
Listen,
It might have
that
been.
looks so weird to me.
They were. Oh, they did a lot of planning in their stories. They had a whole thing about how many different stories you had to have in Captain Marvel Adventures or Mary Marvel or what have you, and they planned out the type of story: whimsical, adventure, comical, or what have you. So the Captain Marvel books, just the monthly, sometime it came out every
After a while, it came out bi-weekly, every other week. Yeah.
So they would say you had this kind of story and with these elements and so on and so forth, so that you didn't read the same thing, So you had maybe a 13-pager, a 10-pager, an 8-pager, and maybe another 12-pager, but each one had different elements, so that you weren't bored by the same story. In Wiz
Comics, yeah.
Each one of those elements had to be incorporated into that story for Captain Marvel.
Wow.
So there was a lot of planning that went into it in pre-production in terms of beats, elements, and so you weren't repetitive. And and maybe Otto
Bender, yeah,
was the major guy doing that work and working with Parker, whatever the editorial chief, who was all these various balls.
So Tawny was just a kind of little left turn in the road, just to kind of keep things interesting.
I think he was like an advertising mascot that they brought in that they thought would be fun, and he really took off. They had a bunch of stuff they were going to do with him that they never got around to doing. They were going to give him his own book and do all sorts of crazy. It was a tiger that was totally anthropomorphic, that was walking around in clothes and talking intelligently with the other human. Yeah,
that seems so freaky to me. I keep thinking, boy, somebody had a little drag on the hookah after.
Well, it wasn't even that. It was the fact that the Captain Marvel stories just were so whimsical. They brought in one of the big villains was an alligator. They had Eyeback, which was an old barbarian character, and
Mr. Mind,
Mr. Mind
villain. It was a worm.
Yeah,
that's worm.
Yeah, an interplanetary space worm with a radio to talk through.
I was going to say, he had a little electronic setup.
One of the old bullet radios around his neck. Yeah, real small version.
The mindset for people where they accepted things. You could, as long as it made sense within the context. You could do that. You didn't have to be realistic.
And
you didn't have to be dark. You didn't have to be all kinds of.
And through and after the war,
you didn't have a narrow mindset because you were allowed to do different things.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
In having read different types of books and stories.
Well, and through and after the war, people just wanted to be entertained with anything that was lighthearted that they could escape with, and that's what Captain Marvel provided. That's why he was selling millions of copies every issue that came out, and was such a popular character because they weren't afraid to go off on whatever whimsical path, the Alice in Wonderland paths that they could think of.
Well, the very definition of the funnies, as we do in
exactly right.
Show. Yeah.
But it's exactly the same after World War I with Winnie the Pooh. The only reason it got big was because the writer made people smile again.
Yeah.
And funny books did it the same after World War II.
And national periodicals, DC at the time, was slamming Fawcett so hard. They were going after him in court so much. They were pulling up examples of Captain Marvel did this, and a year or so before that, their character did that. And then Fawcett would come back and go, well, Superman did that at this point, but Popeye did it 2 years before that. In the comics, they're doing the same thing. So they were, like I said, that court battle lasted for years. The Comic Code Authority kicks in. Fawcett stops doing comics and basically tells DC, we'll pay you a couple thousand, we're just going to stop printing comics anyway. All of that talent that was working at Fawcett at the time, except for CC, especially the writers, the Benders and that, they all moved over to DC and started writing, and that's where you get Batmite That's where you get Ace the Bat Hound. That's where you get
Oh.
Supergirl. That's where you get all of this, the lighthearted, whimsical stuff.
Oh, 'cause
That entire
Supergirl-
period of Batman and
Very Marvel.
Superman.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Mary Marvel,
That's basically
literally,
Mary
yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Superboy is really Captain Marvel Jr.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Years afterwards, you know, and all of that is, and then what? And Kurt Schaffenberger,
Yeah,
what was it?
Kurt. Right.
Who was a major Captain Marvel person? You know,
Yeah,
artist,
major artist,
doing
creator, yeah.
doing Lois Lane and
Yeah.
a lot of other Superman material.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's
So that's a lot of that came from these guys that were selling millions of comics for Fawcett, ended up going and working for DC once the code kicked in because Fawcett shut down.
Yeah.
Was that basically DC's motivation? Was that they didn't want the competition of sales?
That became the base motivation. They sent him a cease and desist when Captain Marvel first came out. Fawcett ignored it and just kept printing them, and DC never pressed it. And what really ticked DC off is the Tim Tyler live action Captain Marvel serial that went through the theaters. And they were mad because they had signed rights over to Fleischer for Superman. And there was a couple of years there, they couldn't do a live action Superman.
Oh, wow.
So once the live action Captain Marvel came out, then they took him to court and said, hey, you ignored this cease and desist from so many years before the war. We're taking you to court now. We want Captain Marvel to stop. And they said, no.
Yeah.
And then they kept selling Captain Marvel for years. I mean, they made back so much in profit that dropping a couple $100,000 just to get DC to go away was just like nuisance money to them.
Oh, yeah.
But Fawcett was making so much money doing pulp magazines, doing men's magazines, doing the spicy Hollywood magazines that the comic market for them just kept dropping and dropping after the war. So they stopped after a while.
Wow. I didn't realize they were making that much money. That was amazing. That's
Oh, yeah.
Millions.
Did they not have their own printing presses?
That wouldn't surprise me. I'm not sure about that fact, but it definitely wouldn't surprise me.
Charlton.
I know that Charlton had their own presses. That's why they had to. They were doing the racing forms.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You could see that in the quality of the publications because the Charlton comic was definitely a step below in printing than the stuff Marvel and DC.
Yeah, Charlton had an all in-house operation. They had one big building over in Wisconsin, and I believe they were writing, drawing, editing, and printing all in the same building. It would have been an amazing place to work.
But they weren't watching their copyrights because most of that stuff's in public domain anymore.
Yeah,
I think they were in Rochester.
Was it Rochester?
Yeah, I think it was Rochester.
Okay.
If they were printing racing forms, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Whitman. I was thinking
Whitman was probably
Yeah, they were
Midwest.
They were, Wisconsin.
That's Gold Key. Yeah, no, they were Wisconsin.
Yeah,
they were the creators of the Big Little Book. Yeah.
Did anybody here ever hear about when they did those Captain Marvel live action serials? How they did some of the special effects?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They had
about the dummy because I was studying that. You know,
slide them along a wire.
My own film, at home.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually worked with my brother and figured out this thing. And I'm like, 12 years old, and my brother's 9 years old, and whatnot. And we came up with a dummy, and we made it. We built. I used one of my jackets and pants and whatnot, and we threw it off our apartment building.
Oh my God!
It just went down, and somebody thought, "Oh my God, little Joey is just jumping all the time."
Well, I know that to make Captain Marvel fly at some point they actually had the stuntman. He was
no. He had a dummy.
Oh, was it
and
a dummy?
What they would do is a full-size dummy would run. And what they did was they would what they did was, if you notice,
you can still see the wire on some of it where
well,
they slid them across.
Yeah, that'd be different, but the wire is they had a wire and then they rolled it down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
and that's how they would. They run the film up backwards.
Well,
that's how they did it because they just used gravity to run it through the wire.
Well, I know at some point they actually had probably the dummy suspended from a helicopter and they would fly it across screen. And you could see the downdraft of the rotors making the trees move. But worked well because that made it look as if Captain Marvel's flying was making the trees,
Just like the old Flash
Amazing.
Gordon serials where you'd see the rocket ship go by with the smoke in space with the smoke trail rising.
Yeah, exactly. It's like-
Classic stuff.
oh, I just wonderful.
And oddly
stuff.
enough, two of the best serials done on and they were super shoestring budgets back then. Two of the best serials of the time was Captain Marvel and Spy Smasher.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever get to see copies of those, just classic serial. Just,
Oh, I love
that's the formula right there. That's all you
Oh,
need.
I mentioned before how the Batman serial was so low budget. They they kept the costumes in a filing cabinet. It was just awesome.
Well, everything was done on set, so the Batmobile was an old gangster car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Just great old stuff, though. If you ever get they just got done running the Batman serial a few months ago on Turner Classic Movies.
Oh, no kidding!
One episode every Saturday. Yeah,
love to see it.
There were several Batman serials.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
Just like eventually they did Superman. There were at least a couple of Superman serials.
Yeah.
Once they were able to, get the rights back to film him live action.
Yeah.
Hey, what
There's
are we
a Captain
working on over
America
there?
serial, a vigilante serial,
Yep.
a cowboy vigilante.
Yeah. What are we working on over there, comic book artist?
He's talking to you, Russ.
Oh,
Russ is working on stuff he can't talk about.
Sorry.
He's under NDA.
Are you sworn to secrecy, or is it just?
Yeah, on this one, yeah.
Yeah, he's under
Sorry.
a couple of them actually. So,
Very good. Is that a sock monkey hanging off your?
Yeah. It's like this just the T monkey.
Awesome.
It's the
Awesome.
PG Tips monkey. Sucks on my thumb. There you go.
Hey, and you, Joe, I like your.
he does that to calm his nerves. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we need to talk about Joe's book here. We brought Joe on so that he could promote his campaign.
And he's listening to a bunch of old guys.
Yeah, and he's listening to old farts talking comics. There we are. Except Mike.
You got me really excited because with what you're talking about the Marvel family and how all the villains and the other characters are really kind of campy or just whimsical and fun.
Here's one last example of the importance of Fawcett Comics. When Lex Luthor was introduced in Superman, he had red hair. When Dr. Savannah was introduced in Captain Marvel, he was bald. Dr. Savannah was so popular, Captain Marvel was so popular, suddenly Luthor was bald.
That's where John Byrne got the idea for red hair when he took over as Superman.
No, he had red hair. There was a big deal in Superboy. There was a story they did in Superboy that showed how Superboy got involved with some Luthor was working on something that was an accident and it took all of his hair.
Yeah, but John Byrne introduced Luthor in his run on Superman with red hair to begin with.
Yeah.
He must where we got the idea. He was hearkening back to some early stuff.
Well, Byrne was known to do that. Go back and look at the old stuff and yeah,
he was really quite the guardian of tradition for that stuff. He was a lot of it, and it's amazing. Most people thought he was just being radical, but he was just going back to the source. It was awesome.
Well, there was a lot of return to greatness that Byrne tried to do with Superman. That
definitely
the introduction of the sun's radiation to power him and that kind of stuff was all out of all from John.
So I guess Joe, we're back to you now.
Yeah,
we'll give you 2 minutes. And then
writer of Misadventures.
So with John on here and Scott on here, I'm excited because they have the kind of the animation connection. But when we did the Misadventures, our original intent was always to get it into some kind of animated format. And now, Randy, that you're talking about how, Fawcett used to do these kind of campy characters. Pops, that's the old one. Drop the new link on there if you have it, or I'll send it to you.
Yeah, put it in the private chat if you can, Joe.
But we did like these demonic robo divas. We have rockstar anthropomorphic trees. Just a bunch of fun. We have abominable snow babies. We did country bumpkin pumpkins. So we wanted to kind of go all out with the campy, whimsical, and I think it's cool because it kind of ties into what you're talking about, Randy, with all the whimsical characters from Fawcett, and just bringing it back to that funny book that our entire approach was make it feel lighthearted, that anybody can pick it up, connect to, kind of like Powerpuff Girls. They have all those goofy villains,
Yeah.
that you never imagined, the Gangrene Gang and the Amoeba Boys and stuff like that. And they're just fun. It wasn't, it wasn't too serious or too dramatic. You could just get lost in an episode of Powerpuff Girls, have fun with the characters. That's kind of our approach with Misadventures.
That's really, we need so much more of that right now, especially now, when times are harder and the economy's in the toilet and all of this. People turn to any source of entertainment that they can get, especially an inexpensive source.
Oh yeah,
Joe, let's see, or an accessible source, I should say. And comics are so universal.
Yeah, can we see close up of that cover again? I didn't see it close up. I didn't see it clearly.
So this is
keep it up there. Oh, very cool. I love it.
So our two heroes, they're over the top. I'm inspired by what you guys were sharing about Fawcett, just because the characters are so over the top, and that's kind of what our approach was with this book. Just make it goofy, silly. Anybody can get lost in it. So yeah, I'm excited about Scott and John's background. Maybe you guys can throw your 2 cents at me, but with your experience with that kind of crossover, that divide with animation stuff.
Yeah, well, that print there reminds me a lot of how the approach I took when I was doing Tiny Toons for Warner Brothers, where they that cartoon at the time it was just everywhere, and they needed somebody that could do that Looney Tunes type, Chuck Jones, Tex Avery type wild craziness, and for the most part, they just let us go. They just let us do what we pleased. And I was doing crazy things like having I did Daffy Duck at one point. At one point, Daffy Duck's following Elmer, following Yosemite, and he's hiding behind this. He comes up from behind this small bucket of water, and he's got this magnifying glass up to his eye, and you see his eyes all enlarged because the magnifying glass. Well, he takes it away; it's an empty frame, and his eye is still huge and big, as if it stayed that way. So they just let us do all kinds of crazy stuff, very much like those original Looney Tunes and such. And and it's great to see like what you're doing. You're taking a very similar path because I see some of that crazy, wacky drawing you're doing on that art. It's just awesome. That's classic foundation stuff. It's just wonderful.
Is that when Tex Avery and those guys were rolling? I mean, is it a different mindset to create just the goofy, the zany, compared to what the other stuff that was coming out at the time?
Well, yeah, it was mostly because those guys were pretty much left to their own devices. I mean, they called the little studio they worked in Termite Terrace because it was just this raggedy old shack that no air conditioning, no heat, and so it was just something they just kind of sweated through everything, and it was that absolute hands-off approach that Warner Bros. I mean, the word was that Warner's just needed filler to go on the screens before the main feature came on. And they pretty much, nobody really understood cartoons or animation at Warner's other than the fact that they wanted to do something as popular as Disney. And so they hired all these guys that were just great cartoonists, and they all, and animation guys, and they just said, just do something entertaining. And so they did, and they just were pretty much turned loose. So it's that type of freewheeling approach that guys like you and so many others nowadays with their own independent projects, you're kind of carrying on that same type of freewheeling, catch as catch can type approach to cartooning and storytelling and entertainment that's producing all this really good quality stuff. So that's, it just so happened that now, of course, Termite Terrace was filled with all these incredible talented guys. I mean, everybody from Tex Avery to Chuck Jones to Robert McKimson. And they just did all this wonderful, wonderful stuff.
Jump in anytime, John.
Okay.
Yeah.
I worked with, I got my bones as an animator getting hired by Friz Freeling, for the Patty Freeling. And
there you go.
Yeah, that's about 1977. '76, and so I worked there at Frizz Freeling at the Patty Freeling, and there was Chuck, Jerry Chinnicky, Bob McKinson, and Sid. All of these guys had been with them at Termite Terrace. They were basically the old Warner Brothers guys, and so one of my first experiences as an animator was following them up and seeing what they were doing. And when Frizz told me, when he said, "Hey, you want to animate for me?" I said, "Fine." That was my. He said, when you get told by the classic guy who did Yosemite Sam and all of those old Warner Brothers, that he was one of the senior directors there, you know that you've graduated.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's your badge of honor right there.
Yeah. So I got to work on Baggy Pants and the Nitwits, on the Mr. Magoo's, what was it? Baggy Pants and Nitwits and Mr. Magoo. That was before they were bought out and sold out to Marvel to do the superhero stuff. So, the 1970s, 77 or so, that was my season to work with those guys. And, it was a great experience because you were, in the crew with them. And that it was all very much of a bullpen situation.
Yeah. Well, no, see, John, I'm just citing history that I've read. Do you have any firsthand anecdotes of working with these guys?
Oh boy,
you can repeat.
Here we go.
I opened up another can of worms.
Yeah,
we should probably do another episode of Sunday Funnies with you, John.
Yeah. Well, when I worked with, I grew up. I mean, my training is basically with old Popeye and Mighty Mouse animators at New York Tech. They were old Fleischer and Terry Toon people, like Johnny Gent and Marty Terrace. Johnny Gent is your big Popeye fight person from the 1940s. Did you work with Bob
Clampett?
What?
Did you ever work with Bob Clampett or knew him?
Bob Clampett, no, he had his own studio, and I was not part of that.
Okay.
Robert McKinson, he was a director at the Patty. I mean, all of the senior animators were all directing.
Gotcha.
Okay, and that's what you had. Sometimes you'd work with a crew. Like if you were part of a crew, that would be one thing, and they had all their favorites. And so sometimes I was a new kid, so I'd be handed out from one guy to another. Said, "Well, we need to have this guy." I'm 27 years old at the time. I mean,
John, I hate to interrupt you, but Joe's battery is getting real low.
Okay.
So we'll pick this up right after Joe tells us about the misadventurers here to make sure that it gets in. Joe, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. If I die, I'll try to get back on my laptop.
All right, go ahead.
I'm streaming off my phone. But no, I mean, kind of like what you were saying, we just wanted something that was lighthearted. We have a Viking princess. You talked about that one barbarian comic that you picked up, Randy, earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The cartoon.
The barbarian, yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of reminded me of the art style, and Nicholas, or the artist from Argentina.
Yeah.
He's really expressive with kind of like an anime quality or manga quality with expression of the characters. And they're all personality. He's a wizard in training. She's a Viking princess. They go off on a fantastic adventure, meet some crazy zany villains, and got to get back in time for dinner. So
that's awesome.
We got Rockstar Trees.
the art has got a bit of a golden age Cartoon Network 90s 2000s vibe about it.
Yep.
Really,
got the
Cartoon Network. Look at
really
that
good stuff.
That's awesome.
What do you think of this, John? John, what do you think of this? What do you think of what Joe's doing?
It's doing great. That looks great. It looks fun. And that's the entertaining aspect of it. I mean, you will know. It doesn't matter what I say; it's what the readers say.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. But still, it's kind of nice to get to have a lineage going back to some foundation stuff to kind of get that nod of approval as it goes forward. It's kind of nice to see that.
Yeah,
Kill the rabbit. What? Anyway,
We got lots of 80s, 90s, homages to cartoons.
Oh yeah.
Look at that guy running.
Nice.
Talk about squash and squish, huh?
Oh
That's awesome.
God,
Look at that.
that's awesome. I got
So,
to,
I mean,
I got
John,
to show you guys some of my Tiny Toons pages sometime. I've got it.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah.
John and Scott, from your perspective, I mean, what would it take for us to make the leap from comic book page to kind of, animated style, with pilots and whatnot, and doing that whole process? Is that a big step to go from?
It is an extremely big step to do because you've got a lot of intricate material. I mean, it really depends on writing and creating a comic book is different from doing animation.
Very much.
I mean, Mike Jimmy is going through that experience of doing his, translate, going from from his books to the world. And it is what you've got your basic beats. Each one of these your pages are beats. You've got to be able to take that and first off, probably simplify things because you need to be able to focus because things are going fast on screen. Yeah. And so there might be you may find that what works on your pages here printed that can be held and looked at are too confusing on the big screen, or even on the small screen, because you got two different things going on. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to deal with in terms of the choices of colors and how the tones will read against each other. On the characters versus backgrounds. There's a lot to go into that.
And your animation is basically presenting a comic book story one frame at a time, albeit for only 2-3 seconds. But the thing is, you have to. What works really well on the like John said, what works well on the comic page has to work differently if it's going to be animated on the screen because you're presenting a totally different storytelling technique. And the other thing is that it's very problematic to go from a self-produced one-man operation of doing a comic book, which you can do, to doing any kind of animation, because then you've got to have a showrunner, you got to have a director, you got to have sound, you got to have
voices.
Yeah, voice work.
I can literally
have all
show
these
you
elements come together. And I would say the biggest thing that is to try and figure out who's going to be the showrunner for this thing. I mean, who's going to kind of have a hand on the reins during the whole thing, because you've got to corral so many. I mean, you're herding cats, basically.
Yeah.
During the whole process of animation.
Or you're crazy like Mike Jimmy.
You do it all on your own, but I can
do it all on your own
translation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can do it on your own, God love you, because it's a hell of a task.
I'm trying. I'm not saying I'm good at it, but I'm trying.
There you go.
Oh, we know you're not good.
He's got a whole series of podcasts up there on the Ragin 2 network, by the way, which everybody ought to be subscribed to. If you want to see Mike Jimmy's progress on the work that he's animating.
I do a storyboard about a scene a week at 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays nowadays.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Randy, there's a short animation motion comic test that we did, I think further down the page.
Down the page?
Let me see where it's at on the actual page.
It's pretty much on top from what I've seen.
I think it's right after the intro video here. Let me flip over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, right above the pages, the header of the pages. Past it.
Right there.
Right there, yeah. We just did a short little motion comic test. No sound.
Let's see this.
Oh, look at them clouds moving. That's sweet.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. The kids jumping up and down. That's awesome. Okay.
So you rigged this in a Toon Boom or something?
Yeah. What program did you do this in?
We worked with a guy that translates comics into motion comic.
Okay.
Sweet.
He just takes layered PSDs and then he kind of makes small animations of the characters and drops in the word bubbles and then puts in little effects, and then it's up to us to drop in sound and background music and stuff.
I can associate with that girl. I've done that to a couple of people. I bet you're full of stories. That'd be great.
That's what I do with my writers.
Yeah.
It's almost tea time. Sweet. That looks awesome. Great work. Fun.
The thing that's always interesting to me is to see the difference between traditional animation and what you did here, which I would call animotion. Because you're just basically just moving things a little bit at a time to kind of give it the illusion of actual animation. But if you can extend that into a much more broader, fully expressive format, then you're basically going to be doing animation.
And if you're out there and you like the kind of stuff that we cover here on Sunday Funnies, you're going to love the Misadventures. You need to go to Kickstarter right now. He's got 49 backers. You're already past your goal, so you know the product's coming out. 9 days left in this campaign over on Kickstarter. The Misadventurers 1 through 4, an all-age fantasy comic full series.
It looks great.
Funded in 30 minutes. There you go. That's the idea.
That's awesome.
That just gives you the incentive to know that, especially on Kickstarter, if you don't hit your goal, the product doesn't happen. But you're past your goal. You know the product's coming out, so it's a solid buy-in here. And you've seen the quality of the work; it's beyond professional, and it'll be well worth your time to go in and get this product. So,
yeah, I think it really looks good. Really looks good.
That's over on Kickstarter, The Misadventurers 1 through 4.
Go get it.
Awesome.
Go get it. Go take a look at it. You'll see what we saw here. And
buy indie comics, especially Joe's.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I want to jump back a little bit, Mike, when you were talking about the popularity of Winnie the Pooh after World War I. Do you think that there was a direct correlation between or from the fact that after World War I, it was I think there was a huge concern over Britain and a lot of the lands that are involved in World War I being just devastated by some of the war, that is part of why they included the 100-acre wood as one of the elements of the story in Winnie the Pooh. Because it was Christopher Robin in the 100-acre wood, and I wonder if there wasn't some way to kind of say, let's keep looking after the land.
There is a real life movie called, I think it's called Christopher Robin, just plain Christopher Robin.
Yep.
And it is a documentary about Christopher Robin as a kid and how he got pushed into not being a child. Because the writer had Christopher Robin, his son, just fantasizing about the 100-acre wood, which was the woods around the house that they had.
Yeah.
And talking about his stuffed animals, and you see like how the writer got inspired by it, and it took off because he made the world smile again. And it shows the horrible life that Christopher Robin had to go through because of that, because child labor was not a law yet, not in show business yet.
Yeah.
But if you have the chance, go and find it, because it is a very, very great insight.
Well, I can't help but wonder, because there always seems to be such a strong theme of the land being preserved, which harkens back to the Arthurian legends, but also Tolkien was real big on that. I mean, he really didn't like the fact there was so much industrialization happening, and he didn't like the land being taken over and all this, and then the 100-acre wood and Winnie the Pooh. So I wonder if you think that there was.
No, in this case, it was the 50-acre wood, which was the little little piece of land that the writer had back in the country, and he was a playwright, but he just had miss after miss after miss, And because of that, he was like, okay, I'm going to take my time off and I'm going to spend time with my son because my wife actually makes more money than I do right now, which in the 30s is not exactly something you want to be proud of.
Yeah.
So he started to spend time with his son, and they got into, talking about more and more about that until, the fantasizing became the books and the short stories, and the writer hired an artist to, start sketching the things that the kid was talking about.
Right.
And so the 50-acre wood, 50 acres to a small child. I mean, Christopher Robin at the time was 4 or 5.
Oh, gotcha.
Like, that's gigantic. Like, you will get lost in those woods on your own.
Oh, yeah.
So, like the 100-acre woods, they made it a little bigger because it rolls off the tongue a little better.
Mhm.
But that is the childish, like wondrous nature of it.
Sure.
Oh, where I grew up in a suburban area, ex farmland around here in Muskegon, and I had probably 10 acres to roam around in my neighborhood. That just looked like the world to me. I mean, I just, I'd go to the very end of it and I think, oh, that's going to take me forever to get home. And, but for a 10-year-old, it's the world.
Mm-hmm. I mean, even when I was a small kid, we lived in a row of houses, very industrial kind of neighborhood. And yeah, you did not go beyond the borders of the street,
Exactly.
Yeah. And
yeah, but you guys had trolls.
Yeah.
Those were under bridges.
Those are called my brothers, actually, by the way.
We're all called trolls here in Michigan because we're under the Mackinac Bridge.
Rosema trolls.
Yeah.
You should.
We're all considered trolls from anybody up in the Upper Peninsula.
Now, I do want to take 1 second to show Joe what the translation is from comic to animation.
Do it. Go ahead.
So let me share my screen on this one.
As long as Joe can hang in there.
I'm trying.
So this is the comic page. You got 3 panels, and it's not responding properly. There we go.
Oh no!
So you got them flying around a tree, and you see the other side of the tree, and then they're talking. So I turned this, and I think this is the first one. Let me tab, and then there we go. Slightly smaller, but whatever. So you got them flying off. This is just animatic. And it should loop. Why doesn't it loop? I don't know.
You got to push the looping, the little...
Push the looping
button. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Push the loop button. Loop button.
Loop it.
Loopy loop.
And then, you got 3 or 4 elements with the far background. Good morning. Just, flying back and forth.
Sure.
And then the other side where you have, me giving a direction, and they appear from behind the tree again.
Oh yeah, your tracking map, as they call it.
Yeah.
That's more traditional approach to animation, though, isn't it?
It's very, very classic cell animation.
It's just the only difference is you're doing it on the computer.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm hearkening back to our source. John, what do you think of this?
Well, it's great. I mean, he's got a Leica reel going, or the story reel.
Yeah.
Which is basically what it is. I mean, for Joe, there's you've got your various as your basic story beats, but you also have your layouts in terms of how you are expanding, and you will be expanding your frame count per page, into your storyboard, because you have to show and really plan for every move, every camera move, and it is not just a matter of how it looks on one screen. It's like when you shift and cut to the next scene. How does that work? Mm-hmm. I mean, are you popping and just confusing the audience, or are you, you're following the camera. And one of the first things you need to do is, I don't know how much experience you have in terms of film production. You need to understand the basic camera angles and how you position your camera so that when you don't jump across a certain line, which confuses you because you're going from a direction. So you have a center line, and you establish your camera on this side of the line here. Well, as long as you allow that to happen, there has to be a reason that you jump the line. So there's a lot going on that you need to know before you start storyboarding your book.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of aesthetics to keep in mind that, depending on the angle you're going to show something at, can affect the way you want the storytelling to be seen.
Oh, yes.
A severe upward angle might make things look a little more threatening. Severe downward angle makes it look a little too distant. I mean,
dominating.
Yeah. Which you can do in a comic book under much more of your own control, because you only really have the one still frame of a panel to consider, and then you can change your mind to the next panel. But with animation, it has to continue. You have to make it flow from one scene to the next.
And I'll give you one little bit of advice, and this is a purely technical thing, is that when you plan your sequence, and we'll just recall whatever is happening within that certain story beat, okay? If it's a certain area, have a master shot that you plan on a piece of paper. Know your positioning so you know where you're blocking everything. Before you know where you're going. And it's not just saying, oh, I'll put it this, No, make sure, like a plan, like it's all architecturally designed because you're building a piece. Understand where everything is. And you're doing with X and O's and your little squiggles and what, but you're looking down and knowing what's going on so that you know where you put a camera, you've got this in your background. Well, what are you going to do? How are you going to represent it? You're going to do, at some point you're going to focus and you'll have let's say a pullback, or you might want to say you're going to fuzz out the background so it's a pull focus, or whatever you're going to do. Understand where you are purely for a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And you're not drawing anything other than a mastered plan.
And that's not easy for everybody to do because, you basically have to, like John said, you're blocking it out ahead of time, creating yourself a map to go by. And that's pretty much set. I mean, and you can't play with it too much while you're working because then it becomes too jumbled. You have to follow this master plan. And so you have to be very, very confident in what you want to do. You have to believe in the choices you've made to make that master plan, but also to stay flexible enough as a creator to say, well, wait a second, in step 5 here, I've really got to make it come around to the other side. I mean, so you have to change that master plan, but you can't do that too much because then you don't really have a master plan. It's all still fluid.
Like cutting a house, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Storyboard for this pilot episode is 25 pages of 9 panels long.
Okay.
On average, I have, probably needed 24 to 36 of those storyboard panels.
Gotcha.
But I focused on mainly getting the dialogue focused. So I had those points, and I pulled the rest from the comic directly.
Okay.
If there's, I don't pull the quiet moments from the comic because the comic is always talking, for the most part. It's getting all the most important hits. Where with animation, you can have those quiet moments where people take in the background and everything and what's going on. So with those, I have some backgrounds that are 5-6 times the canvas that I'm using for animation because, they're starting zoomed out or something and they're zooming into a specific point. So, yeah, you got to think about a lot.
Oh, yeah, a lot. John,
sorry to cut you short, but for more on that, you can follow Mike Jimmy's animation show, which is not even on this card. When is that show on, Mike Jimmy?
Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. UK.
Okay.
On Thursdays.
And it's archived over at the Ragin 2, Ragin with the number 2 YouTube channel. So go over there and take a look at those. It's a great instructional on how to do animation. In fact, go over there and check out all the shows, even though Mike Jimmy's animation show isn't here. Sketchy Saturdays is on. House of Bob is the second Saturday of every month, I think.
I think so, yeah.
The Zimcast is on. Well, I got to get rid of this card. The Zimcast is no longer even on Wednesdays at 9. It's on at Wednesdays at 8.
My favorite show is Where the Hell is Scott Rosemer?
That's it.
That's a cracker.
That's coming soon. I think we're going to be running that on Friday nights. Where in the world is Scott Rosemer?
If anybody can ever figure that out, publish it. Publish it.
Just copy the Carmen Sandiego theme song. We've got it made.
Yeah.
Where
I'll be the first one to know.
Mr. Scott Roseman.
Remember,
as we go out the door, we want to remind everybody that
you can win.
Meatball doesn't work that way. That's right. And to, of course, wise up.
Wise up.
Oh.
That's
Real
the
quick,
great Mr. Natural would remind me.
Hang
on, Scott. While you show your Wolverine, you can tell people how they can find you. That's a great looking Wolverine. By the way.
Yeah.
You can find me on my Facebook page, Scott Roseman, where asses get kicked every day.
Only when Scott's there.
Only when I'm there, which is we'll see.
And you still have Errantry available.
Oh yes. I keep forgetting to put that up there. Errantry.
See that? I'm your biggest salesman, buddy.
Yeah.
Errantry. It's a great. Describe it for us, shall you?
Yeah, it's a anthology title, but it's all sword and sorcery. It's all demons and wizards and sword fights and evil kings and all kinds of stuff that, if you like Lord of the Rings, if you like Conan, if you like Elric of Melibone, if you like all these things,
you pronounce it Melibone.
Love this.
Is that really how it's pronounced? I always thought it was Melnibone.
Melibone?
I don't know. Anyway, somebody correct us. Anyway, I'm probably wrong.
I need to get one of those.
More than likely.
How much is shipping to the Netherlands?
Yes, ship that to the Netherlands a lot. We need to put a box together for you, Mike Jimmy, and all of us just send stuff to you at once.
Please.
And share shipping. There we go.
Or maybe we'll just
sounds
go
like
over
a plan,
there
Mr. Rosema. What?
I mean, I got a spot at Dutch Comic Con if you want.
I know you keep saying that, and I keep thinking I'm going to do it.
Probably if we get you over here, you would get a lot of attention.
Mr. John Celestri, tell folks how they can find you.
Well, you can find me on all the major networks, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I've got my own channel, and the thing is, I'm on Indiegogo. I've got a pre-launch page for Bloodwing Angel Chronicles Book 3, and we're up to 120 pages in the story.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it'll be the third. This will be the third book. So check it out.
Cool.
And
Excellent.
sign up.
Mr. Russ Leach, tell folks how they can find you. Comic book black belt.
You can find me at russleach.com. There you go.
That's all they need to know.
That's all the connections there. The Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that usual tripe.
RussLeach.com.
RussLeach.com. You can find out. I've got a page to share there.
One
you can find out about Only Death Can Save Us from there. That's got its own website, but you can get all that from RussLeach.com. And Only Death Can Save Us is on its way now. It's been lettered. It's completely penciled. I've just got some final inks to do, and then off for the final colours. You want to show a page there, Randy?
Say what?
Do you want to show the page?
Got a sneak peek here.
There's a page for you.
Yeah.
Pretty.
Sweet.
So this is all traditionally inked, although I digitally pencil. So the pages are available. And I've had some very nice people buy artwork from the Indiegogo as well.
There.
Yeah.
So,
that upper right-hand panel with that face look, that's what I looked like in college. That was
Totally believable. Yeah.
The hood and everything.
Where the hell is Scott Roseman today? He's deaf.
That's great stuff. Great stuff. You'll see more Only Death Can Save Us too from Arrow Comics eventually, as soon as we get things together and start
Look forward to it,
publishing
Russ.
more stuff. Issue 1 still available now. So
love it. Love it.
Joe, Michael, or Joe, Joseph, Michael. Tell folks how they can find you, buddy.
At Joseph A. Michael on the social. And then our Kickstarter is running until August 30th for the Misadventures. And we got a weekend special. We're doing the free signed prints for anybody that backs us over the weekend. So from now until midnight tonight, we're throwing this in on top of your pledge or rewards or whatever.
You have less than 10 days to act. So get over there to Kickstarter and
jump on it, baby.
Do it now. Yeah. You saw the quality of the work. You know you're going to love this book. If you're listening to this program, that's exactly what Sunday Funnies is all about.
Awesome.
Mike, Jimmy, tell folks how they can find you.
You can find everything about me on my Linktree /Fairies and Ends. But of course, if you want my comics and the stuff I publish, I do everything in oversize, and very soon this guy's big comic as well. Then be sure to head over to fairiesandends.com because we're expanding fast and we have the big comics.
Awesome. You mean physically big? I mean, are they?
Oh yeah, no, they're oversized.
Amanda B says I popped in just in time. Hey all, hey Amanda.
Hey, Amanda.
Thanks for being here, even if it is for a short time. Oh wait, you all are saying goodbyes. I was eyeing the Only Death Can Save Us page. Yeah,
this is a fantastic supporter, Amanda.
You haven't missed us, Amanda. We are archived over on the Ragin 2 YouTube
she deserves
channel.
all your love.
Please go over there and like and subscribe. That if you haven't hit that like or love button, hit that now. Go over to that Ragin 2 page. We are growing our subscribers organically. Look at those.
No.
Hang on, Mike, Jimmy.
Mike, put that back up.
Let me blow that up here.
United States size.
Boom.
Singular Arrow Comics.
Yeah.
And the Fairies and Ends Oswald Chronicles.
Oh, nice.
Literally Friday.
Nice. Nice.
So I'm super excited being able to publish all these. It's incredible.
Go over to YouTube, even if you're on Facebook right now, over to the Ragin 2, RAGIN, and the number 2. And like and subscribe that. We're growing our subscribers organically. We're not paying for bots. We're not paying for views. We want to grow this organically so that when we can start taking super chats, when we can start having you join our subscriptions, that you're there instead of just paying for some bots or some views to pump us up. And we've been here for, we're almost 6 months in at this point. So, and we have a wide variety of shows, of which that's only a part of them right there. Usually something going on every day of the week. If not, then there soon will be. So go over there and enjoy our content. If you've liked this show, you'll like the other stuff too. The content range runs the gambit. So go over there and enjoy. And also, we've got a special deal going on right now with Gemini Comic Supply. And if you do a campaign, you want to ship your books in a Gemini mailer because that's the easiest way to ship them, and it's it's the safest way to get them, especially through any type of postal or delivery service that you have, because you know how they like to frisbee stuff around. So if you go over to GeminiComicSupply.com, you can order as many Gemini mailers as you want. And on your way out the door, you hit that coupon code RAGIN and the number 2, and they'll knock 5% off your order.
Awesome.
So, no matter how big your order is, we just want to pass those savings on to you. And right now, we need to pinch every penny we can get our hands on.
Oh, yeah.
So go over there and do that. So, and that lets them know that we've got listeners here that appreciate their product as well. So go over there and do that, please. Hey, I've been your host, Randy Zimmerman. You've been listening to the Sunday Funnies for the 21st of August of the year 2022. More than halfway through the year already. It's pretty crazy.
I know, right?
But we do appreciate you being here. We greatly appreciate you. We appreciate everybody that's been in the chat, even JV, until Pops had to pop you out. We really want to tip our hat to Pops for watching the chat for us. I know there's a lot of people out there that can go overboard on some stuff, and we just have to be careful. So don't take it personal. Just watch your language when you're here in the chat. We love you all. Deeply appreciate you. I've been your host, Randy Zimmerman. You can find me on Facebook if you look hard enough. You can find me on Twitter, though I'm never there because Twitter is a cesspool of hate. But you can always go over to the Ragin too and catch all the Sunday Funny archives. In fact, we have a couple of Sunday Funny shows over there we are particularly proud of in our archives. Interviews with Trina Robbins, the great Trina Robbins, I should say, who I'm looking forward to. She's going to be a guest in November at the Grand Rapids show.
Oh, yeah.
That we're going to be at. It's great. Great. My next show is going to be at the Grand Rapids Comic Con at the start of November.
Yeah.
Unless something else springs up. I know there's a show in Monroe, but I think Gary's packed. So you're going to be there at the Monroe Pop Fest, Scott?
No, I'm going to be at the GR show.
You'll be at the GR show in November.
Yeah,
Okay,
November.
cool. We'll
Right.
see you at least then.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Zimcast is on 8 p.m. Wednesday nights, where we talk about the industry a little bit more angrily, a little bit more opinionated, not quite as positively as it. Well, we still are pretty positive over there, but we try to keep things nice and light here on your Sunday morning so that you enjoy your time here with Sunday Funnies. We'll be back here again at 9 a.m. on Sunday. I'm also on Dispatches from Outside the Box. It's on Monday or Tuesday nights, I should say, at 8 p.m. Every episode of Dispatches has a different theme. We just got done talking Jim Henson and the Muppets last week. I'm not sure. I think it's puppets in general in this next one. What?
I'll be on Sunday Funnies like I always am. So look for me.
Place your bets
always
now.
here.
Place your bets now. Yeah. We're actually going to have somebody. Brian's been talking about actually running a line there. So we'll keep track.
So
It's
put
a
your money
small
down, Russ.
pool.
Every
We
week,
have to be careful.
every
though.
week, Scott Rosemer is there in the back room eating Cheetos, and
Eating
Zim,
Cheetos,
Zim,
not just eating Cheetos, but eating
Yeah.
flaming hot Cheetos with
Yeah.
chopsticks.
and Zim is like sitting there going, "I'm not letting him in. I'm not
Yeah.
letting him in."
Is it time?
I will because I know.
I have him for a quarter after the hour. Okay, now he's in. All right. We love you all, everybody. Take care. Have a great
Stay
week.
awesome.
That's
See
what
ya.
See you next Tuesday. And see you next Tuesday. See you next Wednesday. We are TVMA DLSV. Even though we don't really have to post that on this show. But we love you all. We want everybody to take care. Have a good week. Be safe. Make sure you take a chance and go out there to your local retailer if you can take the time and look through all of their back issue boxes and take a look at that stuff that hasn't been priced in a while. Knock some dust off of them magazine boxes and take a look at the great stuff that's available out there in sequential art. If you find some good sequential art, make sure you tell everybody about it. That's why we love doing podcasts like this, so we can put that sparkle in everybody's eyes and have them out looking like, who knew about the Marvel family? Who knew about those old Charltons? Even though they were printed crappily, there's still great stuff in there. Some phenomenal Ditko work in those old Charltons. Some great old superhero stories. Just a good time. He said as he's stalling for time. We're going out the way that we came in. We want to remind you to buy alternative independent comics, especially ours.
Are we off screen?
Don't keep the blinders on.
It's porn Rosemer. There you go.
He can't see himself being here. That's what it is. All right. Take care, everybody. Going out the way we came in. See you soon.
The eyebrows.
Thanks again, everybody, for being here. Now on Sunday mornings. And that's not the one. It's this one.
Yay! Think about what you've accomplished.
Do you draw the Flintstones naked? There's a market for that.
There's a market.
Yep.
Nope.
Ah.
Nope.
Nope.